we're decoding the negative poles of the archetypal feminine.
Which is really a way of talking about the forces of regression, destruction, and doom that threaten the conscious self.
Exactly, these massive primal energies.
And for you listening, it's crucial to get that we're using a specific psychological framework here. The sources define archetypes as these eternal structural concepts, yes, but also as forms that exist genetically.
Genetically, so part of our makeup from the very beginning.
That's it. They're part of the primordial structure of human consciousness. And as the ego, your center of consciousness develops and tries to, stand on its own 2 feet,
It have to break away from something.
it has to break away from the vast, powerful, original unconscious. And when it does, that original energy has to differentiate. It splits into positive and, for our deep dive today, these terrifying negative forces.
So we need this structural map to understand how they operate. Because they don't just show up in one way, do they?
Not at all. They manifest in 2 very, very distinct ways in your life.
Right. And we should be clear, we're not talking about like everyday human behavior here. We're talking about immense primal energy structures in the deep unconscious that can feel frighteningly present.
Absolutely. And to understand the split, we have to start at the beginning, before any split even happened.
Before consciousness started, cutting things up into good and bad, light and dark.
Precisely. Before any of that, we had the Ouroboros.
The circular snake eating its own tail.
It's such a perfect symbol for that primal beginning, isn't it? It represents the earliest, still undifferentiated primordial archetype.
The great round. The everything. It's the original totality.
And its most essential feature is ambivalence. It combines all the positive attributes and all the negative ones together in one single, undifferentiated mass.
So it's the womb and the tomb at the same time.
At the exact same time. It gives you protection and nourishment, but it also carries the threat of being swallowed right back into non-existence. That ambivalence is the signature of the original undivided unconscious.
Okay, so as the ego starts to emerge and tries to pull away from this cosmic container.
That singular, powerful mass has to differentiate. It has to split so the ego can interact with it and, frankly, survive it.
And that's where the structure comes in. The sources show this original feminine energy crystallizing into 2 fundamental characters, 2 great axes.
And each of those axes has a positive and a negative pole.
Let's take the first one. We could call it the axis of stability and containment. This is what our sources call the elementary character. Axis M.
Right. Elementary as in foundational, rooted. This is the conservative force.
What does that mean, conservative?
It's focused on preserving, keeping warm, nourishing, and this is key for the negative side holding, fast, and containment.
So it can be the protective embrace, but it can also become the suffocating enclosure.
Exactly. And then you have the second axis, the axis of change and movement. This is the transformative character, or axis A.
So this is the dynamic force,
Yeah.
the one that pushes for motion, transformation, rebirth.
That's right. If the elementary character is all about being, the transformative character is all about becoming. And psychologically, the transformative character is often sort of overwhelmed by the elementary one at first. It only gradually gains the power to push for real independence and growth.
So if you, as the listener, want to achieve that independence and growth, you have to successfully navigate the destructive sides of both axes, the M and the A.
You have to. There's no way around them.
So let's tackle the first one now, the one that feels, I think, the most physically terrifying. The terrible mother?
The terrible mother. In the framework, she's designated M negative. She's the negative pole of that elementary character we just talked about.
The one about holding fast.
Yes. And her power is rooted in the corporeal material. To pull that out of academic speak, it just means her threat is physical. It's rooted in matter. Her power leads directly to physical death, to extinction.
She is the ultimate primal taker, the force that basically says, you came from me, and you are coming back to me.
That's the core of it. Her mythological actions are always about diminution, shrinking you down to nothing.
Devouring you whole, holding you fast, and snaring you. She is the devouring maw of the underworld.
The one who reclaims everything that has been born into the light. And the symbolism is just so immediate, so visceral across all mythologies.
I mean, you see it everywhere. Her mysteries are linked with graves, cemeteries, rot, decay.
All forms of regression, yes. She's the blood-drinking goddess of death. Whether you're looking at Kali in India, whose hunger demands the slaying of living creatures.
Right, to sustain cosmic energy.
Or certain forms of the war goddess. Her function is simply to consume life.
The imagery is just universally terrifying, isn't it? The terrible female often appears as a mouth bristling with teeth.
The vagina dentata motif.
right? Where the womb, the source of life, becomes this deadly place of destruction. You see that in North American myths, in Aztec depictions of the death goddess with her obsidian knives.
Which brings us to a really crucial psychological point. If we're defining these figures not just mythologically but psychologically, what does M, the terrible mother, feel like in your inner life?
Okay. Yeah.
If she is holding fast, devouring, preventing all movement, she is the psychological equivalent of total inertia.
Ah, that's a powerful way to put it. So M negative isn't just about the fear of dying physically one day. It's the psychological dread of being completely locked down, stuck, a state of immobility and stagnation right now.
Precisely. And a fantastic mythological illustration of this is the petrifying gaze of the Gorgon.
Medusa.
When Medusa turns men to stone, that's a psychic expression for petrifaction and
Yeah.
sclerosis.
Petrification and sclerosis. So that's like
Yeah.
hardening, becoming rigid.
It is the ultimate opposition to the mobility of the life stream. To be petrified is to be psychologically rigid. It's the inability to accept new truths, the refusal to change, the paralyzing fear of moving forward. The Gorgon is the womb of death that locks you down.
Okay, so this crushing weight of stagnation, of being frozen, that belongs entirely to the elementary character's negative pole, to M negative.
Entirely.
So if the terrible mother is the grave that ensnares the body and causes this psychological inertia, this inability to act,
Yeah.
we have to ask, what's the force that's trying to destroy the mind while we're still alive and kicking?
Here's where it gets really interesting.
This shifts us from the threat to the body to the threat to the soul.
It does, because the threat moves away from brute material annihilation and toward something more like a seductive, often beautiful psychic dissolution. We turn to the negative anima.
The lower pole of the transformative character, axis A.
A negative. And this pole signifies the psychic spiritual side of the negative feminine.
So if M negative gives you physical death and inertia, A negative promises spiritual psychic death. It's still a transformation, but it's a transformation that leads to dissolution.
Manifesting as madness, stupor, enchantment, and helplessness. The energy here is dynamic, you're right, but it's a dynamic that's leading you right off a cliff.
How does it do that? What are its functions?
This pole involves rejection and deprivation, functions that just destroy the ego's sense of self-worth and its ability to sustain itself. One of the most severe manifestations the sources highlight is an acute loneliness and exile.
Like being cast out.
It's the distress, the German word is Elend, of being expelled from that nocturnal bliss, that protective unconsciousness of early life. The ego is awake now, but it's painfully, horribly alone.
And when the ego tries to assert its independence, the negative anima uses a really subtle form of destruction. The sources call it the withdrawal of love.
And it's used as an active instrument of power. It's a devastating insight. Think of it as psychic abandonment or emotional manipulation, all designed to pull that fledgling ego back into subservience.
So if the child tries to achieve independence,
The A-negative force creates this clinging, ensnaring situation where the offspring is psychically starved or punished for daring to grow up. It's that perpetual withholding that makes you feel perpetually incomplete, you know?
and this is the realm of the seductive figures, the ones who weaponize fascination.
The young witch, the one who deals in negative intoxicants, poison, magic potions that just regressively dissolve your consciousness. This whole sphere is populated by alluring and utterly fatal enchantresses.
So we're talking about figures like Circe.
Think of Circe, yes.
Yeah.
She doesn't kill men directly, she bewitches them. She gives them drugs that regressively turn them into animals. Or figures like Lilith, Astarte, and especially the Siren.
The siren, whose song is so beautiful, drives you mad.
Her sheer excessive fascination becomes a disintegrator of consciousness.
That contrast is so important. The terrible mother is this crushing, heavy weight of stagnation, the devouring maw. The negative anima is this beautiful, enchanting pull toward self-destruction and madness.
One is a crushing paralysis, M. The other is a euphoric, terrifying, unwinding, A.
But as you said earlier, these aren't actually separate entities. They're part of one system.
The terrible mother and the negative anima are two sides of the same regressive coin. They have to remain connected because they both ultimately lead back toward the Ouroboros.
Back to the undifferentiated beginning.
Absolutely. The structural framework shows the differentiation is not absolute. They're part of a dynamic circle. You even see in mythology how the terrifying feminine often includes a destructive masculine attribute, a phallus, a tooth, a serpent, showing that the original unity of life and death is never truly broken.
Which implies there's a constant underlying pull Our sources call this psychic gravitation.
And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a natural inertial pull where the ego tends to sink back into the negative, devouring aspect of the unconscious. Consciousness destroying and aggressive tendencies, they belong together in these lower poles.
So it takes effort to stay conscious.
It takes a conscious, powerful, energetic charge, a massive effort from the ego to stay in the light of consciousness and resist that pull, the pull toward either crushing inertia or psychic dissolution.
So the life of the conscious ego is a constant battle against both. The force that wants you paralyzed and the force that wants you dissolved.
But this is the paradox. This is where the sources offer a glimmer of hope in all this darkness. We find the phenomenon of reversal.
The reversal. How can destruction possibly become creation?
At the extreme point, the negative pole can flip into the positive. A state of intense negative distress or emptiness. That feeling of absolute forsakenness or dissolution that's so characteristic of the A negative pole.
Okay.
That can become the turning point. The very bottom can lead to positive inspiration and salvation. When you hit absolute rock bottom, when the personality has been completely stripped away by the suffering of the negative anima, that death of the old self is the prerequisite for renewal, for rebirth.
So that seductive dissolution that promises madness is also the necessary void from which a new, stronger ego can actually emerge.
It is the ultimate psychological truth about transformation. You cannot transform without going through the transformative axis, and its lowest point is dissolution. You have to face the full terror of A negative to find the positive power on the A positive side.
And you can see this tension played out in entire cultures, can't you?
Yeah.
The sources point to the Aztec worldview.
A dramatic example. Their consciousness was so strongly tied to the patriarchal solar principle, the masculine ideal of light and clarity.
But they lived in constant dread fear of being swallowed by the feminine dark unconscious, by M negative.
That fear was so profound, the fear of the earth womb just opening up and taking back the light, that it led to constant wars to take prisoners for blood sacrifice.
This ritualized killing was an attempt to reinforce solar conscious life, to push back the devouring night.
And the symbols of the slain prisoner were incredibly complex, simultaneously female and male, mother and son, earth and the god of light. It shows how the warrior's path and the victim's death are deeply intertwined with the Great Mother's regenerative power, a life taken to reinforce life.
That's a striking cultural example. It really grounds this abstract terror. They had to perpetually fight the M-negative pole, that fear of physical devouring, just to keep their conscious world from crumbling.
It was a constant battle.
So what does this all mean for us, for you, listening and navigating your own inner world? We've seen how the destructive feminine operates on two crucial axes. The elementary character, M, leading to physical annihilation, stagnation, inertia.
And the transformative character, A, leading to psychic dissolution, madness, and that enchanting stupor.
Understanding these powerful archetypal forces is, well, it's essential, isn't it? The ego's journey toward independence requires navigating precisely between these two forms of aggression.
It does. One wants to freeze you in place, the other wants to dissolve you into chaos. And if you can identify the psychological manifestation, is this M-negative paralysis I'm feeling, or is this A-negative seductive self-destructive spiraling? You gain the clarity you need to maintain your consciousness.
Indeed. And it's important to remember, the early mythology is so clear that the original cosmic principle, the Great Round, was the source of both life and terror.
Absolutely. Think about a figure like Tiamat, the primordial ocean. She wasn't inherently evil. She was the genitrix, the true mother of all creatures.
It was only later, when the solar hero Marduk defeated her, establishing law and order and fixed places in the cosmos, that the subsequent patriarchal worlds started to see Tiamat solely as evil and abysmal.
The necessary act of establishing consciousness required, in their minds, slaying that primordial chaos.
So if the process of forming consciousness requires slaying the primordial darkness to establish order and law, this raises a really important question for you to mull over. What potential remains locked away or distorted when we fail to acknowledge that the source of our deepest terrors was once the source of all life and creation? What transformative power are we denying when we only see the abyss and not the mother?